And now for this afternoon's reflection, please join me in welcoming Adaeze Okafo, School Prefect.
For decades, prefects have stood at this same lectern and made their mark in Ridley's history. They have captivated audiences, and in some cases, bored them to sleep, with their reflections, experiences, and most importantly, their stories. The stories that created their legacy. As my fellow grade 12s and I count down the 113 days until we graduate, I started thinking, how do I want people to remember me? Do I want you to remember the version of me that seems like she has everything together? The version of me that has meticulously planned each millisecond from now until she graduates medical school? Or do I want you to remember the real me, the me that spends so much time overthinking the future that she forgets to live in the present? This prefect speech is the perfect opportunity to share the lessons I learned from the embarrassing, the happy, and the sad stories that reveal a part of me that most of you don't get to see. Good afternoon, Mr. Kidd, Miss Bet, Mr. Postma, and teachers, my beloved parents, and fellow students. Today, I want to introduce you all to the real me. Are you ready?
Yes.
Great, because I'm not ready. I'm not ready for life outside these walls. I'm not ready to pack up my room for the last time. I'm not ready to stop singing chapel hymns or screaming Ridley cheers. I'm not ready to stop bothering my former roommate every time I need a makeup tip. I'm not ready to see everyone in this room for what might be the last time. I'm not ready to leave the place that has become my second home. I'm not ready for the end of my Ridley story. The story that began when a girl was sent to boarding school at age 11. I arrived for my first year at Ridley in grade 6, and this place felt huge coming from a small school in Milton. I was also shocked by the number of activities we were involved in each day. I believe they called it mandatory fun. There were weekly border excursions. Everyone had to join a club and play sports at least 3 times a week. I was exhausted almost every day because I wasn't used to being busy all the time. I was so exhausted that I started drinking Gatorade because I needed more energy, and I got through my day on a sugar high. Eventually, I realized I had to change this habit and my sleep schedule to keep up with the demands of the day. I'm sure that every one of you has your own story about adapting to the busy life at Ridley. So lesson number 1, to be successful, you must be able to adapt to new environments and embrace change. The thing about change is that it changes you, and you get to decide if it is for the worse or for the better. Going outside my comfort zone changed me for the better. The sky was no longer the limit, and I wanted my footprints on the moon. This next story is about a girl whose dream was to present an original speech on the Mandeville stage. My grade 6 self wouldn't believe that in a few years, she would be doing so in front of the entire school. Despite my consistent efforts, I could not qualify to compete in the grades 7, 8, and 9 speech competitions because of my shyness, my tendency to speak too fast, and the fact that I simply didn't measure up to the rest of my peers. Grade 10 was my last chance to qualify, and I presented the speech I had practiced over and over again, and all my past insecurities flooded my mind. Maybe public speaking just isn't your thing. Maybe you're not good enough. Maybe it is time to let go of your dream. To my complete surprise, I proved those voices wrong, as later that week I was chosen to represent the grade 10 class in the junior public speaking competition. I was so excited, and I couldn't wait to share the news with my family and friends. However, I overheard that someone declined their offer to compete before I received mine. Finding out that I was a backup plan threw me into a spiral of self-doubt. I felt like an imposter. I still wasn't good enough. On the day of the speech competition, panic settled in, and the words, "You don't deserve this, you don't belong here, you were the second choice," echoed through my mind. I suppressed those thoughts by replacing them. Regardless of the circumstances, I was proud of myself for reaching my goal of presenting an original speech on the Mandeville stage. After not being eligible to compete for 3 years and being the second choice among my peers, I ended up winning the competition. This leads me to lesson number 2. Saying that something isn't your thing is simply an excuse we give ourselves when we want to give up. Never stop believing in yourself, no matter how long it takes. My parents always taught me to aim high, go for what I want, and never, ever be the one to write myself off. The last story I will tell you is about a girl in her final year of high school. I think my fellow seniors can agree that the first term of grade 12 was hell. IAs, EEs, essays, tests, and on top of all of that, university applications that forced us all to decide what our futures hold. I felt the pressure from school gradually crushing me as the walls were closing in. Then came the pressure from home in response to multiple academic groundings, most of which came from Mr. Bowen. And then I started to feel the pressure from my body in response to my lack of sleep and proper nutrition. The week before December break, I saw a sudden transition from, "Hey Ada, how are you?" to, "Wow, you look exhausted." I started to get really sick without even realizing it. I couldn't hear what my body was telling me because I was too busy pushing myself beyond my limit. It wasn't until I heard the words, "Ada, I think you have a fever," that I realized maybe I'm not okay. I went to the health center with a high temperature, and I stayed there until it was gone. Later that evening, I arrived fashionably late to the Mandeville House dinner, looking like I had just gotten run over. Still, the Mandeville girls clapped for me as I made my grand entrance, and I took a moment to be present and appreciate all the love and support surrounding me, to look at each smiling face and listen to the girls screaming, "Ada, you made it. I'm so happy you're here." Shout out to Mandeville House for being the best, most supportive house ever! Later in the week, I had to leave class again because I felt myself going in and out of consciousness. My body could no longer support me, and the nurses told me that my temperature was even higher than before. I was really scared for my health. It was hard listening to the nurses when they told me I couldn't go back to school. It was hard telling my teachers that I couldn't submit my outstanding assignments. I knew I had reached my lowest point when Mr. Locke wrote that I fell asleep in my report card comments. As I read this comment in disbelief at this complete betrayal, I wondered how would I ever explain this to my Nigerian parents. That is the very moment I told myself something has to change. It was extremely hard to admit to myself that I had reached my limit and I could not keep pushing. But I had to finally accept that it was okay to take a break and prioritize my well-being over my meticulous plans. I'm eternally grateful to those who asked me what I ate on days when I rarely left my room. To those who asked me how well I slept when I stayed up all night. To those who told me to take a break when I had been working for hours. You know who you are, and I thank you for saving me from myself when I needed it the most. Finally, lesson number 3. It's extremely easy to neglect your physical and mental health when things are difficult and you are under stress. However, you need to make a conscious effort to prioritize sleeping, eating, and spending time with the people you care about. You only have one body, and you cannot pour from an empty cup. Unfortunately, I needed to crash and burn to recognize that, but please, don't make my same mistake. So now that you have heard my story, what's yours? Are you going to run away from change or jump out of your comfort zone? Are you going to reach for the sky or stop at the ceiling? Are you going to try and forget your darkest moments, or will you search for the lessons within them? You are the author of your own story, and you have the power to create the life of your dreams. I am ready. I am ready to create the life of my dreams. I am ready for new beginnings, even though Shine, Jesus, Shine and Deep in the Heart will always remain burned into my memory. I am ready because I am armed with the hymns, cheers, stories, and most importantly, the lessons that will forever be a part of me, even after I say goodbye to Ridley.